Hi, welcome to Lockdown Book Review number 4. I'm sure you've been waiting for it tonight. Today we have Charles Darwin, The Origin of Species. And I'm thinking, who has read this? Anybody? Everybody's quoted from it. And it's probably one of the most influential, I would say in the top 10 most influential books of all time. That's just my opinion. It's an amazing book. And of course it addresses this whole, or introduces and encapsulates the theory of evolution. And Darwin was really the first man to write a magnificent treatise about this. Of course, Wallace put something out before, and his dad Erasmus influenced him, and Lamarck. But Darwin was really the hero of the story in this case. Now, it's a very scientific book, and actually quite a little bit hard to read. I'm just going to read a summary of chapter 1 just to start. If under changing conditions of life, organic beings present individual differences in almost every part of their structure, and this cannot be disputed, if there be, owing to their geometrical rate of increase, a severe struggle for life at some age, season or year, and this certainly cannot be disputed, then considering the infinite complexity of the relations of all organic beings to each other and to their conditions of life, causing an infinite diversity in structure, constitution and habits to be advantageous to them, it would be most extraordinary fact if no variations had ever occurred useful to each being's own welfare. In the same manner as so many variations have occurred useful to man, but if variations useful to any organic being ever do occur, assuredly individuals thus characterized will have the best chance for being preserved in the struggle for life. And from the strong principle of inheritance, these will tend to produce offspring of similarly characterized. This principle of preservation, or the survival of the fittest, I have called natural selection. And there you can see his definitions there. It's wonderful, isn't it? And you can tell it's actually quite philosophical, scientific, and it's an amazing, thorough book. Now I'm just going to read another section. We're reading a lot tonight. I thought it was interesting. He addresses in a whole chapter the complex structures or organs and how could they have occurred. And one of them is the eye. And it's interesting because you may have heard of the theories against this with the blind watchmaker. And Darwin doesn't shy away. He writes, to suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for emitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have been formed by natural selection, seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest degree. When it was first said that the sun stood still and the world turned around, the common sense of mankind declared the doctrine false. But the old saying of vox populi, vox dei, as every philosopher knows, cannot be trusted in science. And he goes on and gives a thorough argument how this could have occurred. And it's not saying you should or have to or don't or can agree with it, but it's certainly addressed. And it's just wonderfully comprehensive, the whole book. He addresses the geological record as well. And it's well worth looking into. Now, Darwin, he was on a journey, just like when he journeyed around the world on the Beagle in the ship and took thousands of specimens, and he would be, I think, one of the greatest, if not the greatest naturalist of all time. But he didn't hide from talking about the divine. He writes here, I see no good reason why the views given in this volume should shock the religious feelings of anyone. It is satisfactory as showing how transient such impressions are, to remember that the greatest discovery ever made by man, namely, the law of the attraction of gravity, was also attacked by Leibniz, as subversive and natural and inferentially of revealed religion. A celebrated author and divine has written to me that he has gradually learnt to see that it is just a noble conception of the deity to believe that he created a few original forms capable of self-development into other and needful forms, as to believe that he required a fresh act of creation to supply the voids caused by the action of his laws. Well, that's deep, isn't it? I quite like it. And, it just shows that he was a thinking man and on a journey. Good on him. Good on you, Charles. And just to finish, he summarises, this is almost the last paragraph, so it's quite interesting. It is interesting to contemplate a tangled bank, clothed with many plants of many kinds, with birds singing on the bushes, with various insects flitting about, and with worms crawling through the damp earth, and reflect that these elaborately constructed forms, so different from each other and dependent upon each other in so complex a manner, have all been produced by laws acting around us. And just going on a bit, there is grandeur in this view of life, with its several powers having been originally breathed by the Creator into a few forms or into one, and that whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms, most beautiful and wonderful, have been and are being evolved. I love that. I think it's a book worth reading? Nah, not really. It's far too, if you like, detailed and scientific for most. But if you're a biologist, I think it's a must read. In fact, if you haven't read it and you're a biologist, I'm not going to listen to you. You won't understand your history and foundation, if you like, of your science almost. So thank you for listening, and you have a great night.